Okay, hello and good evening, everyone. Greetings from Techfest IIT Bombay. Today's session is one of the most anticipated ones of the entire online lecture series, wherein today we have with us five-time world chess champion and India's first Grandmaster, Viswanathan Anand sir. And along with him, we have to host this session another beloved chess player, none other than Tania Sachdev, international master and a woman grandmaster. I welcome both of y'all, Vishwanathan sir and Tania ma'am, and our audience on behalf of the entire TechFest IIT Bombay team. And I request you all to take over this chat session from here.
Thank you so much for that, Shantanu, and a big warm welcome to everybody who's joining us. I am very excited, Anand, for this session. Thank you for coming here. And when IIT asked me to do this, IIT Bombay, by the way, big shout out for hosting this, for getting such great personalities. It's always, Anand, such a privilege and an honor to interview you. And I'm really looking forward to asking you some interesting questions which our audience have sent us. So welcome,
Great.
firstly.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we received a lot of questions from students across India, and then I think what I want to start with is what everybody is talking about right now, which is your career being captured in a biopic. And as a chess player myself and a big fan, I think this has been very difficult here. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us how this came to be and what made you pick up this particular project.
Well, there was an offer to do a biopic, and this time we felt it was the right time for all sorts of reasons. And the rest for me as well is going to be very interesting. I have done projects before, but this will be unique because to actually have your own story on screen, and then again, I think it's nice that I had the experience of writing my book last year. It's nice, but it's exciting as well, and obviously I'm going to try very hard to make it very good.
It is very exciting, but Anand, is it going to be, you mentioned, it's about picking up those highlights, those moments from your career. So are we going to see a lot of chess in it, or will it also focus a lot on your personal aspect of life?
First of all, I feel that if you're going to show the chess, you have to show it well. And of course, post Queen's Gambit, we have no choice. We have to show real positions with real pieces. We can't have the king's rook on the wrong square. And it'll be fun to give chess players as well something to, if I can find old unknown games of mine and put them in as positions and people want to guess, that'll be fun. I would guess, though, that a lot of it will be about what I was thinking during the game rather than what everybody could see. That's the extra material that we'll bring. Since I'm going to obviously consult and work with Anand Rai, then we will see how we tell the hidden moments and how we bring it out. And like I said, very similar to the book, but just the film version of it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because I guess there's a lot of stories I want to tell, but then at some point we'll have to prioritize and say, okay, this one goes in, this one goes out. These will be tough decisions, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, there are so many incredible and exciting moments that I can think of from your life that, we would love to see on screen. So it's definitely not going to be easy to pick and choose from that. But I also want to ask you, I know I read that right now we don't know who's going to be playing the lead characters. But I'm very interested to know that if you could just pick anyone, maybe a favorite actor who you think would do justice to your role, and I'm sure that even Aruna would be a big part of it. Who would you personally want to play you and Aruna, ma'am?
I've answered this question many times in the past in the abstract, but now that it's actually a real possibility, I don't want to I don't want to know. It's like asking me who would you like as an opponent at some point in the future, and do you want these two guys who are playing this game today to qualify to play you? I think right now I would rather not answer that question.
Okay, fair enough, because it's actually a reality now.
It's actually going to happen, and yeah, let's not start that.
Okay, fair enough. Now, you mentioned that there are so many exciting moments from the career, as well as what you might have felt emotionally that the film wants to bring out. And one of the things that our audience and our students really wanted to know about is that after such a long career and continuing to be one of the top players, you've won world championships in different formats, you have won super elite events, and it's been over decades. The longevity is incredible. And we got this question from a lot of students that it's really difficult, but if you had to pick these three defining moments, or what made you measure your success in these three big moments, what comes to your mind instinctively?
Maybe it's even easier to do it by years than individual moments. I mean, you know as well as I do that even picking your favorite move from your favorite game, it just doesn't work like that, right? I mean, part of the thing is the story rather than the move, and the tournament rather than a single game. It's literally like choosing which hand is your favorite or something. But if I look at my journey, I would have to say 1987. So first World Junior, then Grandmaster title. I mean, the more I look back, then you remember the significance of that
Yes.
year and how many doors it opened for me. I mean, there's a lot of things I take for granted in subsequent years that happened because of those two key results. And after that, I would Delhi, Tehran, and my first world title was important. But for me, I think Mexico and subsequently Bonn were also incredibly important milestones. Because in Mexico, I became unified world champion.
Yes.
And then in Bonn, I got over this thing of winning a match. And I think the first one it was special also because I played it in Delhi, the whole tournament in 2000. The match format, the tournament, the knockout format that I won. And I've already got to 3 moments. There are lots of other nice moments that hard to pick. I mean, I hate these reduce it to 3 or reduce it to 5 things. It's so tough.
It's very interesting to hear that you would put 87 and 88 as one of the defining moments, because I also remember that a similar question had come up with Magnus, and when we were talking about, if there was one moment, and you think that somebody would say maybe the world championship, but instead he said it was actually winning the nationals in Norway in one of the junior tournaments, because that's when he believed that, he can do it, and that he has it in him. And it sort of makes me feel that way, that confidence, or that first moment of this thing that yes, you made it, for you might have been in 87 or 88.
In fact, then I could even add 83, where I had my breakthrough year, where I started as a decent club player, and I won a tournament in the club with 6 out of 6. New vibe. I thought, well, it's nice that it happened. And then a nice touch for your audience. I went on to IIT Bombay to play the National League Championship in Powai. So that's where I played. And my brother lived quite close by in Mulund. So I would, I think half the tournament I stayed in the campus, and then I switched to my brother's place. And from there, I went on to play the National B in Ahmedabad and qualified for the National A. That was also incredibly significant.
Yes.
Because literally, I was a club player, and at the end of that trip, I was going to play the National A. and a process I expected to take a couple of years just took 2 months of my summer holidays. So very magical time as well. But if you really start thinking about it, you come up with more and more moments, and it's hard for me to pick actually.
Absolutely. I mean, a career that's spanning almost 4 decades, it's extremely hard to pick just 3 or 4 moments. But that's some special memories from IIT Bombay, and you were there. But now, given the times, we are doing this over a Zoom call, as we've been doing many, many things. Vishy, we were also talking about longevity, and we were talking about how that's been a big part of your career. Not many players who were at the top in the 90s and the 2000s have continued to do the same. And I remember one moment, and I'm going to tell our audience about this. This was when I was playing the national championship, the national premier championship in Chennai. And this was, oh my God, it was so long ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. It was in 2007 or 8. And we had the opportunity to go for dinner with you. And that was quite a big moment for all of us. And I remember we had gone to this really nice Chinese restaurant in Chennai. And there was you, there was Sarvanan, there were several other top players, and there were a lot of the women players who were participating in the Premier Championship. So, we were all sitting across the table, and we had the opportunity to ask you questions. And this is such a vivid memory for me, Anand. I remember somebody asked you that, if you had to pen down 10 secrets of your success or 10 things that have led, like what would they be? And you, being as calm and humble as you always are, you were just like, there are no 10 secrets. There's just one. And that is that I really enjoy playing chess. And I remember, I don't know why, but I remember that moment a lot in many different times when we are doing different things. I think there's a lot to take away from that. But do you think the longevity factor still comes in from that, from this enjoyment of just playing chess?
Yes, I mean, that's almost a truism, isn't it? In order to play well at chess, you have to play chess. And you cannot play chess unless... it's not something you do unless you like doing it. It's not something you'd pick for any other reason. You wouldn't play chess because it's a good regular job or something. It isn't. It's something you do because it caught your fancy very early in life, and it captured your imagination, and that's it. It's a lifelong thing. So that is the first thing. I still enjoy competing. I enjoy traveling. Not all the aspects are on the chessboard. I mean, sometimes it's also wanting to be at chess tournaments, meeting friends. A lot of my life revolves around chess. So that's the thing. But fundamentally, I think you have to be willing to learn new things and challenge yourself and go to a chessboard and want to play a game and have the prospect of losing, but try your best, work there, and that's what it really comes down to. And as long as you have that desire and you're enjoying not just a few moments during the game, but the whole experience, then it goes beautifully.
Yeah, and Anand, that actually brings me to my next question, because I think that's a really fascinating point, that the core thing is that there is no other big reason except to have that enjoyment that you derive from the game. Now, I know that we are all quite lucky as chess players that a lot of us, at least, that we're able to follow something and do something that we really enjoy and love and sort of make a profession out of it. But I know that this is a challenge that a lot of students might face. There are certain fields that they might really enjoy or have a passion for, but it's difficult to kind of continue doing that. And then many of us get dragged into the more, like a job that we might have to do, but it's not something that drives us. What would be your advice? Because I think a lot of our students are in that thing where they, will be stepping out into the world and sort of taking up these decisions. How would you guide them into this process?
Okay, the first thing that popped to my head was, look, I was fortunate, lucky, however you want to put it. When I finished my 10th standard exams, I became national champion for the first time. When I finished my 12th standard exams, I became a grandmaster. And when I finished my BCom, I broke the top 10. So you could say that at every critical junction, when you're most likely to ask yourself, can I pull this off, or do I need a more stable, financially stable career? There were no headwinds. I mean, this was so obviously the right decision. I mean, if you just become grandmaster, you think, well, of course, this works. But after a couple of years of being a grandmaster, you may think, well, do I like the uncertainty, this and that? And then I became a candidate. And immediately, new possibilities opened for me, new doors opened for me. And once you get in the top 10, you don't really need to think about it. So I could finally let my BCom rest and become a chess player. So circumstances matter. You may, at the time that you want to take this decision, things may look choppy, and you may have to cope with reality, let's say. You'll have to do things that maybe you don't want to do right away, but you have to. What has also happened in the time from when I was 17 to today is this, that so there were professions or jobs where you followed your passion. You wanted to be a photographer, you liked music, you liked art, you liked some sport, and you did it because you couldn't get it out of your head. That's what you wanted to do every day. That's what you were excited to get up about. And you were willing to sacrifice stability and predictability for that. What has happened in the last 30 years is that the so-called secure jobs, the engineer, doctor, lawyer jobs, which people thought was secure, and once upon a time your family encouraged you to get a secure job like that, those jobs have become much more insecure now. So what will happen, I think, is that nowadays you have to be much more flexible. There's no job which is secure or things look guaranteed. It may look good right now, but who can tell in 5 years? You're probably going to have to be much more flexible anyway. And even if you end up changing a lot of jobs in your career, it might be much more fun, always with the predictability gone, but you may have several opportunities to come back to your passion as well. But you'll have to be much more flexible now. We live in a world where everything is changing so fast that you may simply have to accept that as a reality of life. But once you accept that, it opens up interesting possibilities. You can do many things. So always, there's a silver lining. You close one door, another one opens. And I would encourage people listening to just consider that fact, not have too strong a sense of what they want to do right now, to be flexible, to stay interested in other things. You never know when it might be something you need to do a lot of.
I really like that. That's a very positive outlook to how challenging actually things have been, and how you mentioned that they're fast evolving and changing, and how one needs to be able to adapt that, and flexibility. Now 2020 has been a very difficult year for a lot of us, and it's been very challenging. Do you think that there are certain qualities that perhaps have come over through your journey in chess, and skills that you might have picked up, that have translated into how you have how it's been for you in this year, and how you've taken on this year?
Well, first of all, let's state that while this year has been inconvenient, it's certainly, I think most of us are quite lucky as things go. In March, in April, you could have been really stuck somewhere far away from home, in situations beyond your control. At least I was with very close friends at a place that I knew well. And those of us who have been able to work from home and things like that, we're actually quite lucky. So let's keep that in mind. But most of all, this year I've been very flexible. part of it out of necessity, simply tournaments dried up, and then you have a lot of time, and you think, well, let me try different things. So I tried commentary during the candidates. Then I played a couple of online events. I've been doing the graphies on an academy. Before that, I did some courses there. Then this project, which I had discussed a while back with Westbridge, to have the Westbridge Anand Academy. Suddenly, we were able to, announce that and launch it. But you have to be open to different things. And this year, by the way, there are many opportunities that have come, all online, but nonetheless, many things that are lined up. And in a different year, a different time, I might have said no, but now I just think, let me not take a decision too quickly whether I like it or not. Let me try it. You have to be flexible also. If you're very inflexible, then there might be things you like that you never get to try. So it's important to have some level of flexibility built in. That's probably a layoff from the last 10, 12 years of my career. Not the last, but the last 10, 12, which is that I've had to adapt to young players, to new openings, to new techniques. And I think I've done a reasonable job in being adaptable. And that's probably helped carry over into this year as well. In that I find it easier to be flexible and not to have too strong tastes.
That's quite interesting, and I think this flexibility and adaptability, and I'm wondering about it now. It does perhaps come also from a little bit of how what chess has taught us. How evaluating and changing to circumstances over the board. Many times things don't go according to plan. Even when what we want, we can see the position on the board, but we don't know how our opponent is going to react. And then sort of changing our mindset and moving according to that. I know it can't be a literal translation because a lot of people say chess imitates life and, things like that. But there are some parallels that I've been thinking a lot about actually over the last few months. And I completely agree with you that definitely it's been a blessing in many ways. And I think one of the more fortunate ones are the chess players because it's been moved online. But I do feel that there are things, if we look at what we've learned from chess, that stand out more in what's going on in our world now more than ever. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yes, maybe for the audience we can actually clarify that this year has been sort of gangbusters for chess. A lot of people. It turns out that there were a lot of people at home who always wanted to have the time, who always wanted to get around to trying chess. It was in the back of their mind. Maybe they never got around to it or they never found the time. And then this year, they've been logging on to chess websites and playing chess and learning chess and everything. The second thing is that, and again, none of these coincidences were planned. Second thing is we had this series on Netflix, The Queen's Gambit, which again has driven all sorts of numbers and metrics in chess sky high. And again, you have to think, if this pandemic had happened 10 years ago, our internet would have been much lousier. 2020 is probably the best year to sit at home and do a lot of things on video, for instance. And a lot of things worked right for chess, but there was no way we could have planned it. So chess has been a sport which has, relatively speaking, thrived this year. Having said that, we all, we can't travel. You can't easily go to the doctor. You can't easily go here and there. So there are adaptations, but at least professionally speaking, it's been good. Some chess players would obviously like to be able to travel and play more, but under the circumstances, somehow we've landed on a sweet spot. I think there's probably, again, would emphasize that if you're ready to adapt, then not all unexpected things are bad, some unexpected things are good. And maybe that's what chess can teach the world this year.
Especially in retrospect, when you look behind, you will perhaps see the positive that's come out of something. And it's also interesting because you speak about adaptability, and I feel that for you, it's much more than 2020, because we've spoken about this before, that, it's adapting to the change in the chess world, which happened with computers coming in. It's adapting to the change of actually facing, as chess has gotten younger and still maintaining the top, the absolute elite level in the chess world. And I want to know for you, what has been, is it very challenging, or is it more motivating, the whole thing about how chess is constantly changing now? Is that also that driving point that keeps one going, the learning and the unlearning of things? And I know this is something that you've spoken about before.
Yes, very much. It's driven by necessity, and I don't get to control the pace of how computers are growing and developing in chess, especially recently with the introduction of our AI into chess. That's gone even faster. There are many changes that you don't control. So, but in a way, it's a nice challenge. You just think, well, let me do it for one more year and see. And knowing that I did it with much younger players this time, or in a different country, or in a different format, well, there's some satisfaction. You notch it up and you think, well, that was good. I managed one more wave, and we'll try again tomorrow. But at the heart of it, it's competing. I mean, it's nothing unusual to sit at a chessboard and then walk away happy if you win and a bit upset if you lose. That's the same feeling that's been there since I started. Yeah, I guess there's a core, and then everything else you adapt.
Yeah, and Anand, I was reading one of your interviews earlier, and it was very fascinating, because in that you did speak about the same thing, about these emotions. And it's also in a part of your book where you speak about the extreme emotions that you felt. But obviously, whenever I've met you, or whenever anybody sees you over the chessboard, they don't see any of that. Like, you always come across as so in control and so calm. How do you keep those? Because that's really incredible to see, because chess really does build up a lot of emotions inside us. And we all know that as chess players, that what happens after the game and after you've left that public eye is very different. How do you manage to keep yourself at the highest level when so much is at stake, so much control over nerves and over emotions?
It helps that I generally have a fairly poker face. I don't, it's not how I express emotion. I swear to myself a lot. I'm sitting inside and screaming at myself, but I can do it with this plastic face. And that's been hardwired to me, because probably in the beginning itself, I was told, keep your thoughts to yourself. You might reveal something in the chess game that might be important. And in chess, this is a valid point. Even if you know that you have made a mistake, it's not necessarily revealed to your opponent. And you might get lucky, and your opponent might not see it. So why volunteer? And somewhere I got into that habit. But of course, as you will see in the book, it's something. I can worry about these things for days or weeks afterwards. And quite often I'll return to painful moments and so on. But there I'm maybe acting just enough to get somewhere alone so that I can relax and be myself. But inevitably, I think in some of the, at least recently in some of the press conferences and so on, if I've had a really bad day and they ask me for the 10th time, one of these, at least let's say obvious questions, then you snap at them, but maybe I do it in a soft enough voice, nobody really picks up.
I have witnessed that happen.
It's struggle. I mean, there are, what I hate most is to go to a press conference after a game and then have somebody ask you, a really painful loss. You may be winning the whole game and then you blundered in the end. So how do you feel? I mean, there aren't words to answer such a question. And at that moment, you want, it's really tough. It's not that I blame them. I can see that if I was in their place, I might not be able to come up with a better question, but it's that kind of thing. And it's very difficult to sign autographs after a painful defeat, for instance. But I grin and bear it. I just think, well, in a way, these kids are paying my bills, and it's not their fault. I played like an idiot, and I might kick myself once or twice, but I'll sign it. And so you cope, but I'm glad. No, I'm glad people think I'm well behaved. Let's leave it at that.
I have to say, Anand, like I've seen moments like that happen. And I think, of course, you handle them the best that you can. But I think the one person who handles it better than you is actually Aruna. I think she just takes control of the situation, and she's such an amazing support when these things happen that it's incredible to see that.
Yes, in fact, she's been such a support, and mainly in not only, we often talk about how Aruna tries to handle everything so that I can concentrate on my chess and focus on that, but also she simply absorbs a lot of the anguish. She'll deal with one part of the public side of what I face so that I don't have to deal with it, and somehow she's able to bottle it up till the end of a tournament or something. So that's been a very, very important factor in my career. Of course, you don't want to refer to a marriage like that, but it's been, I think, decisive in my career. And it's true. She takes even more than I do. And the worst thing about supporting a chess player is that even if you see the right move, you can't do anything. You're helpless. They have to see it. And that's the hardest bit.
Right. Well, and you mentioned there are a lot of interesting things and interesting projects that you've taken in this year because of the time that we're in. And one of them, you're doing this very interesting graphy as well. And that you are doing, the theme is actually teaching your partner. And I know that you have one today evening. Tell us a little bit about that experience of doing the graphy with Aruna, and which project out of these different things that you've taken on this year have you enjoyed the most?
Okay, the second question first. Each thing has been enjoyable in a different way, and in fact, the variety even helps, because to do the same thing 3 or 4 months in a row would be tough, but change of scenario helps a bit. As for the graphy, Unacademy pitched it to us and said, would you like to do it? And then we thought, sure, but what do you want me to teach? And then Aruna came up with this idea, well, look, why don't we pretend that you teach me? And not pretend, but the thing is, Aruna has actually picked up a lot of chess just by watching me. In '97, we once played a game where she imitated the Rai Lopez for about 14 moves without any problem. And I thought, we are really predictable. If somebody who didn't know the rules 2 moves before is able to play bishop b5, a4, b3, c3, bishop c2, it's really something. Boy, we are repetitive, But then we thought, well, it'll be fun for me, this idea of teaching her, and it'll be fun for her as well. Because you think she has got everything, but there are gaps, of course, and we could just see how it turns out, and also try to take it from the perspective of the audience. If you're teaching someone who's learned it yesterday, how do you make it less intimidating? This is probably the easiest. Even if you want to learn from your spouse, you don't want your spouse to say, oh, that's a terrible move, you lost in 1. It's not what you want to hear. So I think we try to make it fun and banter, and it's a nice new project.
Amazing. So for everybody here, you can watch that. It's at 7 o'clock today. And Anand, I know we have to let you go, but one last question, which a lot of people ask. So we're going to end it with that. And a lot of our audience wants to know that what are your thoughts on the next generation of chess players from India? And do you believe that we will see a future world champion? Because now we've got so much talent and so many strong grandmasters, but nobody has been truly able to, I feel, be where you are and, just like at the very, very top. So do you think that will change in the future, and your message to the young budding players?
Look, we've had lots and lots of very talented players emerge. I think some of it is not in our control. I mean, you couldn't have predicted that I would come out of India, or you couldn't have predicted that Magnus would come out of Norway. Unexpected things happen, and but it's true that at some level, I feel that we need to have a little bit more of a system. For instance, the Russians have an incredibly good system, and you can see it at the top. They now have 3 players in the top 10, and it's very impressive. So it's one of the things I'm trying to do with the Westbridge Academy. So I've started an academy with the Westbridge, and we're going to try and support these youngsters. See if I can mentor them. I mean, they're already grandmasters, they're already top 100 players. I'm not going to teach them how to move the queen. I'm going to share my experiences and see if that and some kind of support, some guidance, perhaps some of them can break through. At any rate, I think it will be excellent for chess in India, and that's one project I'm very excited about.
Amazing. And thank you so much. So it's really all about the infrastructure and the support that can be built up to sort of bridge that gap between being one of the very strong grandmasters and being the very best in the world. And I think it's amazing, Anand, what you're doing for chess. And thank you so much for all of that. It's always such a privilege to ask you questions. Thank you to everybody who's joining us. And Anand, finally, just your message to our audience before we say goodbye to them.
And yeah, sure. Thanks, Tania, and thanks to everyone at IIT Mumbai. Even if this time I had to appear virtually, but it's still always a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the event.